and thanks for coming out. I'll say a couple words about Cloquet Invisible. We're a local chapter.
The mic's not working.
Go ahead, begin to it.
We're a local chapter of the National Invisible Movement, or grassroots network committed to defending. I'll say a couple words about Cloquet Invisible. We're a local chapter.
The mic's not working.
Go ahead, begin to it.
We're a local chapter of increase civic engagement, raise political awareness, and promote progressive policies at local, state, and national levels. There's a little bit of info back on the one of the tables back there. We meet the second Tuesdays at 6 at our Savior's Lutheran Church. And what we're doing here is we're holding a series of candidate forums through 2026 for local, state, and federal offices. And we're going to be inviting candidates from all political parties to help them craft their messages and for voters to get to know them. Our next event is going to be December 1st in Moose Lake. Kyle Kramer, who's running for Congress, is going to be there, so we'll be hosting a candidate forum there. That's 6 o'clock December 1st at Hope Lutheran Church in Moose Lake, and we'll be getting more info about that soon.
How do you sign up for the newsletter?
Yeah, there's a sign up for the newsletter back there.
Online.
And let's see. Oh, so I'm gonna say a couple words about Chris, and then we're gonna have a dialogue. And if you can, I've got another mic there. I'll bring it around to people who want to say something. And so please use the mic because some of us, like me, I forgot my hearing aids at home. And we also have a Zoom part going on here. This is the first time we've done this. We're still figuring out how it works, but we're going to try and be able to get questions from folks on Zoom too. Okay, so Chris Swanson of Cloquet is running for the Minnesota House District 11A. And Chris is from Cloquet. He's on the city council. He teaches social studies at Cloquet High School, and he is a union leader. He's also worked in previous campaigns for a DFL candidate for HT 11A, and here he is.
Well, it's fun to look out on the crowd, and I recognize a bunch of you. I've met a bunch of you. Maybe I've met all of you. I don't know, but it's good to see some friendly faces, and fun to see some maybe not so friendly faces. But I'll do my best to make them friendly by the end of the night. I am Chris Swanson. I do teach at Cloquet High School. I've been there since 2001. As I look out at the crowd, I see students of mine. I see former students of mine. I see people that I went to school with. I see former teachers of mine and former colleagues. So it's really fun to have like the whole gamut, and probably some parents out there too of students of mine, which is really, really neat. It's good to be a teacher, and it's good to be a teacher at a time like this. I'm a social studies teacher. I teach government classes, which is kind of fitting and helpful for me. I teach American history classes as well, and I've been doing that for quite a time. Man, it's been quite a ride here for the last several years, as I'm sure you guys can appreciate. And I think that it's going to take a different type of representative, frankly, to do the work that needs to be done. I appreciate the people that have come before us in the legislature. I see former Representative Mike Sundin here, who's been a mentor of mine over the years, a real big help. And I do know that it's been helpful for me to have been a part of the Cloquet City Council for a couple of different times. I represented Ward 3, which is the center part of Cloquet for a time, and now I represent Ward 1 on the City Council. I happen to be on the Fire District Board, so if you got any complaints about the taxes going up because of that, you can forward those to the chief. it's been a really good time to serve on the council, a really good time to connect with people that I might not have otherwise been able to connect with. I think it's indicative of the kind of legislature or legislator that I could be in St. Paul. We need to have some actual change. I've been at a few township board meetings and supervisors meet on a semi-annual basis. And was recently at an event where the guy who was in position right now, Jeff Dodsett, spoke. And I was a little disturbed or a little bothered by all of the things that he touted as the success, the wild success of the legislature. I don't want to trash Jeff Dodsett. I think he's probably trying doing what he thinks he can do. But I think we can do more. I think we can do better. I think we can meet the needs of our area, which are maybe a little bit different from what they need in the Twin Cities. I think they're certainly different from what Jeff Dodsett thinks that we need, but that's all right. We need to have those conversations. I think that, well, I'm the kind of guy at the city council level whose job it is to bridge the gaps. Are we good? Can you guys hear me in the back? All right, good.
Well, it needs to be louder.
It does need to be louder. All right, I'll get a little bit closer to my mouth. How
Just
about
turn the
that?
microphone on.
You got it, Kelly? When I got onto the city council,
Much better.
it was at a time when things were pretty tense here in the city of Cloquet. And I think I've been able to help turn down the temperature a bit. Those of you that live in Cloquet know that there's been a bit of wildness in our city, especially on the city council level. And there's been a good change that's occurred. It shouldn't always just be peace and quiet on a city council level or in any legislative body. But I tell you, it's good to be able to look across the dais there and see people of goodwill. To look across and know that even though we disagree, we can get along. And I think that's the kind of leadership that we need down in St. Paul as well. And that's what I'd like to bring to the table. I do this in my classroom. I do it in my, well, I think we probably all do in our own families to some degree, right? We do the best to make sure that, with our neighbors, with our friends, that we're communicating in a way that they can understand, in a way that protects their dignity, in a way that honors their ideals, their ideas. I want to be that kind of legislator. I'm not sure that's what we're getting right at the moment. I guess, I have a bunch more other things that I could talk about, but there's a lot of people here that probably have some questions for me. I really just want to serve, and I think that is what it takes to be a decent legislator. You gotta want that, you gotta earn that, and that's what I intend to do over the course of the next year. We have until November of next fall to make the rounds. I've been at Matthews Township Board meeting. I was glad to be there. That's a pretty small place, and I was glad that I met and knew, there was 9 people there, and 6 of them I've already connected with and know, which is kind of crazy. I student taught under one of the people, their kid, and knew a couple of the others, which is really fun. And my son used to play ball with one of the other guy's sons. So it's fun to be able to make those connections, but it's not just at township board meetings that you gotta go. Especially as a legislator, you gotta meet people where they're at, right? My intention is to get out into those townships, get out into the streets of Cloquet, get over to Thompson Township, from Sturgeon Lake all the way up to Brookston. This district is about 1,500 square miles and has about 42 and 43,000 people in it. I probably won't get to all of them, but my hope is that I can get to as many as I possibly can. And certainly going to need some help over the course of the next year. So with that, Kelly, do you want to?
Couple more things. We go until 7:30, the library closes at 7. So you won't be able to get out the way you came in. You have to go out that door or that door over there. That's probably the easiest one, it goes right into the parking lot. So if you use the mic, you don't have to push anything and put it right up to your mouth. And that's how it works.
would you like to talk about? A dialogue requires that some brave soul actually raises a hand, Kelly hands you the mic, and then we can have a chat. Who's got a question or something they'd like to address?
Thank you. I would be interested in hearing some of the issues you think at the state legislature need your input, that you'd be interested in working on that maybe aren't going the way you think they should right now.
Yeah, great question. There's all sorts of issues, of course, some of it stems from, I mean, for me, some of the troubles I think that we have as a country stem from federal issues that are going on, right? And for a lot of it, I think it comes down to some principled leadership. You cannot tell me that it's a good idea to send ICE into all the communities and to put soldiers on the streets and so on. I just don't believe that. I know that there's tension out there, I know that there's struggles, but that's something that as a state, we should have some boundaries up around. We have a governor right now that's not in favor of that, that's probably not gonna nationalize the National Guard or anything like that, but, I mean, that's a principled leadership kind of deal. I think that we have a few responsibilities that need some taken care of, like making sure that our children are taken care of. There's if you may have been reading anything by Courtney Griner, you'll recognize her as connected with the folks that are taking care of our youngest kids. And all of the pre-K education stuff is horribly underfunded. People are having a very, very difficult time paying for childcare, getting childcare, and making sure that those childcare or daycare centers or home family care kind of places are able to make it. So I think that we need to have a funding stream that is dedicated. I don't know how to do that exactly yet, but we have all sorts of ways to fund all sorts of other things. And I told Courtney that we need to fund that before we pass any more tax cuts for millionaires or billionaires or, well, now we have apparently a trillionaire coming to the national level. We gotta have some dedicated funding for things like that. One of the ways that I've heard about, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I mean, since we asked, that I had talked with Senator Grant Hochschild about recently is the potential for taxing data mining. I don't know what that looks like exactly, honestly. I don't know how you do that or the technical ins and outs of that, but I bet it can be found out. We do have an ad valorem tax right on taconite. So as ore comes out of the ground and is turned to taconite and then it's delivered elsewhere, we get paid, or the state of Minnesota gets money for that. Of course, a lot of it ends up in the taconite Iron Range areas. Well, tech companies are actually mining our data. It is not the same thing. I absolutely understand that. And I don't know the technical details about how you actually gauge how much data is being mined. But right now, I think they're getting almost all of that for free. Could we get some of that revenue back? I think it's possible. I think it's a good idea to rein in the power of corporations. I've been reading about the Montana plan recently, about limiting the power of corporations to speak as if they're a human. I think the Citizens United case is a little crazy myself. I've tried to make sense of it, to justify it. I cannot. I don't understand how that is okay, except for the Supreme Court has decided to do what it's going to do. And if states are the ones that can create the rules around corporations, well, I think we got to take back some of that authority, and that's what it sounds like is happening in Montana. So I think those are a couple of items. School funding is always going to be an issue. I happen to be a school teacher. I know that my classroom wasn't designed for 34 students in it, but I have a class that has 34. I have colleagues that have over 160 students in a day. In their classroom is probably designed, I don't know, Jim, for like 20-something, 25 kids in those classes. It is difficult, and I know that Poke schools are not doing too bad compared to some other neighboring districts, right? But we can shore some of those troubles up. Some of it's gonna be money, some of it's gonna be personnel, some of it's gonna be new leadership. I'd like to be able to help where I can. So there's 3 items that I think are worth working on. Kelly has the mic back there. Oh, here's it.
I mean this with no offense, but how are you going to reach out to younger age groups to spread your message to us?
I take no offense. And one of the challenges, of course, I have Ella in my government class right now. That's pretty fun. It'd be great to stand up and talk about that in class tomorrow. The struggle is for an old man like me, that I don't have all of the ins and outs of of TikTok, of Snapchat, of all the social medias like down cold. But Ella, I could probably use a little bit of help with that if you got time. Those kind of things, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that's the struggle, is meant to be a bridge to that next generation, and I think that's kind of where we're at. I have, I don't know how many several thousand students that I've had over the years now, and I'm so grateful that they keep coming back and saying, hey, we really appreciated what you did, or man, I learned a lot in that class, thank you. That warms my heart, and I don't, there's not a lot of accolades in education, but it's really important for former teachers. So I encourage everybody to reach out to their teachers, and if you're one of my former students, man, I would love to have you be a part of the campaign. So I may not be able to do it exactly, but I know that I've got a lot of smart, motivated, bright young people that can help me with that. So Ellie, you need to sign up over at the table. Oh, let me say this too while we're getting done. I want you to know that I'll always be straight with you. In class, as you know, I try to walk the line, right? It's not my job as a teacher especially as a government teacher, to try to warp the minds of the students or any of that, right? I'm not about brainwashing or trying to influence everybody to my way of thinking. I hope that my students don't feel like that. Raise your hand if you were a former student of mine. Yeah, look in the back here. We got several of them. Did you feel brainwashed? No, not right now. Okay, we're doing all right. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here. Just not to put you on the spot, but I'm just wondering, I stopped in about a month ago at the Stauber's office in Duluth. My wife was getting a little chiropractic work done. What do you in general plan to do differently than Representative Stauber? Who was your lover when we were walking outside with our signs and saying no more kings?
So I'm actually running for the Minnesota House of Representatives, not running for Congress. Congress is meeting out in Washington, D.C.
What would you do differently than that?
Well, I think one of the things that I would do different is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm very available, and I am very glad to talk with people that are interested. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that Congressman Stauber did not visit with the crowd that was marching that day.
We were outside.
Yeah, and I thought that, what a missed opportunity for him to hear what people think or what they believe. And I think, I don't know, you guys seem friendly to me. I don't think it would have been impossible to actually have a conversation with that guy. Representative Dotsev, I think, is cut from the same cloth.
Well, they all have to support Trump, because if they don't, they get primaries and are out, and the old guards are responding to wanting to Trump.
I think that's
The
troubling.
courts aren't old enough, so we don't have free check. We don't have our three branches of government anymore. As I see, we don't, as I was taught in my school, but we don't have checks and balances. It's, I'm gonna tear down the east wing, build what I want, and then the historical people are saying, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should, this guy doesn't go through the checks and balances. He doesn't observe by the law, and who's stopping him? The Supreme Court is appointed by him.
I hear you, yeah, so we have,
So we don't have the checks and balances that we're supposed to have. And we've been warned about this by previous presidents that, hey, a guy in the president's office can do a lot of damage. And that's what's been happened 4 years ago, in the first term, and now we're not even 1 year and it's still, it's just goo-goo land.
I hear what you're saying, and I end up having to say this, you guys can attest to this, we live in very interesting times. We have a president that isn't following the norm, in fact, I think in a lot of ways he's torching the norms that we have.
And we've got people supporting him.
And that's something that I think is,
Citizens United,
yeah,
Elon Musk put $250 million to get 5 votes to get Trump elected. That's not right. Obama told the Supreme Court, when you do that, when you pass this, Citizen United, there's gonna be issues. They just crossed their arms and shut them out. That's not, and these guys are supposed to, take oath to the Constitution of the United States. They're not doing it.
I agree, and I think that, one of the things that I will do is continue to be straight with people, continue to listen to people, continue to, gosh, I take phone calls for city council, I'll take, phone calls from, the district. I would be glad to meet with people, I will not, support the things that are wrong, that are illegal, that our, presidents or maybe, heaven forbid, our governor should go down the path of. And that's not what we're about. I agree with you. We take an oath for a reason. And, you're sworn to uphold the Constitution.
We're supposed to, anyway.
Yeah, well, and I think the name of this group is great, right? We the people, like, that's what it should be about. We are endowed by, I mean, this is from that's from the Constitution. And then the, section, gosh, the, second paragraph of the Declaration of the Senate. We're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've got to.
Not on the king in the United States.
I'm with you.
That's why we did what we did.
I think we're on the same
George
team.
Washington, he wanted it to be a king, and I'm going to do
You
it.
gotta watch that Ken Burns film.
Oh, sure.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm one of those people that, you know, with the AC, they, extended is getting, my ass whacked. And I'm wondering, as you travel and hear the stories, healthcare is huge, at least it is for me. What you're thinking in terms of the ways the state can help? Yeah.
You know, that is a great question. I am not an expert on, policy as it relates to the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid, Medicare payments and so on. I do think it's, kind of criminal to strip all that stuff away from people and to jack up the rates. I mean, we do have a free market system, of course, but I don't know, I'm convinced that that is the best way to go, and we probably should move in the direction of single payer. I don't know how to do that exactly. I do think that, it needs to be simpler, it needs to be effective, it needs to be, efficient with our dollars. It's crazy to me that we have so many executives that are making, you know, amazing sums of money on the backs of our citizens. So I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna need help with that. And, I think we've gotta be able to do better. It happens well in Scandinavian countries, it happens well, in many, well, I mean, in Central America, we have Costa Rica, pretty good plan. There's possibilities out there. I'm sorry that I don't have all the answers, but I'm just being straight with you. This is definitely a concern, and, I'm hearing that it's not just, it's not just happening to our citizens, it's also happening to all the service providers as well. You start cutting all those things, and then people have to go to the, emergency room to get care, because you can't turn them away. Well, that has a problem, or that adds a problem, or a layer of financial burden to those, providers. And, they pass that along to the rest of us that do have coverage, right? So it is not just a, you know, people are making the money and people are taking the money kind of argument. It is all of us in this thing together. And I think that the better way, honestly, is to make sure that all of us, in fact, are in this together. I'm sorry, that's maybe not a satisfactory answer, but I'll give you where I'm at.
Good evening.
Good evening.
denied Agent Orange benefits because of a politician drawing a line on a map, saying that because he's outside this line, you don't get benefits. Or people like myself who have been part of the military, but because I didn't hit certain, I didn't hit my 20 years to get the health benefits. I'm dealing with hearing issues. I'm dealing with other things that may have health effects down the line. Obviously, when you have the federal government cutting funding towards a lot of veterans' benefits, how can the state fill in to help those people that are being dropped?
I have an awesome question. Well, first, Bryce, I've known for years, former student of mine, thank you for serving in the military, serving all of us. This is really a big deal. I guess the simple answer is it all comes down to money, right? I know that the state of Minnesota does provide some VA care, does provide some housing. It seems like it's never enough. We provide, I think, reimbursement for travel services from home to the VA. You have some tax, property tax, what do you call it? What is it called? The property tax, there's less,
But you,
up to a limit, right?
but it doesn't, not everyone qualifies, you have to have a certain level of disability in order to qualify for it.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some formulaic things that can be worked out, and then just some policy stuff that needs to be worked out. Yeah, I don't know, I have family that is involved in the, or that has been a military VA, or, I'm sorry, veterans in various conflicts, including Vietnam, and most recently Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of them does have some tinnitus and some issues with hearing and some other medical maladies, and they seem to be getting the care that they need, but it seems like they have to travel an awful long way sometimes to get that kind of care. So I think that one of the things we need to do is make it possible for our people to get care at other providers besides the VA. I think that that's happening to some degree, but maybe it could happen more. I would love to chat with you more about that. Anybody else that has some ideas about those things? I'm only one person. I will not have all of the answers, and that's why I'm going to be dependent on other people that filling in some of the gaps. I'll be glad to talk more with that, or more with you about that another time. Guys, I guess I should say this too. There is on the table, Mary, could you hold those cards? There's a bunch of index cards that, if you'd like to share with me some information, you can write on one of those cards and then just stick it either on the table or in that container on the table, and I will get back to you. I can't possibly know everything, as you well know, and I would be glad to research or to listen to more concerns or to understand better. And I think that's what it takes to be a good legislator. Sorry for the non-answer, Bryce. You're doing the best I can.
Okay, Chris, let's get to where the rubber hits the road here a little bit. Tell us why we should vote for you. What separates you from this, you call him Doxa character or whatever? Let's hear what the differences are in your opinion.
Well, I happen to be coming to this from the Democratic side of the aisle. I'm a labor union guy myself. I believe in collective bargaining. I've served our city with pride and levity. I think that's important. I will listen to people. I will meet with people. I will be glad to chat with Jeff Dossett or anybody about any of the topics. I was disheartened over the last election cycle when I visited with him about the potential of holding a forum. I think that's wrong that he declined to have a forum with the other candidate. I'm prepared to do that. Again, I won't know all the answers, but I will do my very best. I'll be straight with people. I happen to believe in integrity. I think that matters a lot. And I'm not convinced otherwise with the other guy. I think think that it's important to believe in public service and then actually to serve. And that's what I'm about.
My question is, you have a lot of name recognition in this area here because of your teaching experience and career. You know a lot of people know you. My concern is the area south of Moose Lake. And from my understanding, that is a very red area. And I'm wondering what is your kind of strategy to get into that area and have people know you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's part of the reason why the Democratic candidate didn't win in the last cycle, is not having recognition in that area. It's gonna take boots on the ground, knocking on the doors. It's gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna take showing up at those events. I'm not embarrassed to say that I've been beat several times playing cribbage with the good people in Wright, Minnesota on Thursday nights. They are really good cribbage players out there. That kind of thing can build bridges. That matters. I'm glad to do that. There are probably people watching or people in the crowd here that know people that are able and willing to actually sit down and have a conversation. I'm very glad to meet with our county commissioners, but they're only one person, right? So I've been able to touch base with them and then get some addresses and telephone numbers that I can make a call to. That's the kind of leadership I think that we need. That's what I'm prepared to do. That's what I'm intending to do over the course of the next year. You gotta get in front of people. I think it's helpful to understand what's going on in the various communities as well. I know in some places where I've visited, they've said, well, we got, a representative from Pete Stopper's office, right? But they didn't actually get him. They've never seen Jeff Dotson show up at their location, and that they've had their county commissioners have showed up, I think, which is great. But to have a candidate show up a year in advance to find out what's going on, proved to be pretty helpful for them, or at least encouraging to them that somebody actually cares. Isn't that the problem, is that people sometimes just don't know that they are cared for, that people are aware that they exist. Frankly, I think that's probably one reason why people live out in the country, is people want to be, sort of apart or alone, right? But we don't want people to be completely alone. I want to be able to reach out and touch them. I don't know, that's kind of what I'm saying. I'd like to have that common touch with them, or to meet them, to talk to them. Is this recorded? That's what I intended.
So I'm going to ask a question that's slightly controversial, and you probably know what it's going to be. I'm involved with gun violence prevention at the local, state, and national level. We had the shooting of a legislator, a murder of a legislator, and the shooting of the state senator. And on top of that, we had the shooting at Annunciation Church at the beginning of the school year. And there is an effort by the Annunciation community to get an assault weapons ban passed in the state of Minnesota. I realize that's controversial, but I don't think I've ever seen this much support for an assault weapons ban in Minnesota. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that, because you are a teacher, and I know that kids feel very vulnerable in their classrooms to school shootings. And the second part of this is the Minnesota State Capitol allows people to carry guns, loaded guns. They can be openly carried, and I've seen them openly carried, and there's an attempt by some of the gun violence prevention groups to get a bill passed that would not allow any guns in the Minnesota Capitol, and also at polling places. Big guns should not be allowed at polling places, but I'm interested in what your thoughts are.
She really brought it there, didn't she? Well, I'll tell you, I just got out of the woods yesterday afternoon after not having seen any deer for all weekend long, so I froze my tail off 2 weekends in a row. Maybe next weekend will be the weekend. You know, this is a good question for our area. There's a lot of gun ownership in our area. And I understand people really, you know, enjoy the tradition of hunting and being with family and so on. That's a big reason why I go hunting. Some days it's, I mean, it's really nice to be able to put food on the table, right? It's a whole different thing if we're using it, a gun or a weapon to kill human life. And that is so far beyond the pale. I really wrestle with that because I know that semi-automatic weapons are pretty dangerous. They can also be useful tools in the right hands. But that's the problem, right? Is that it's not responsible to be carrying an assault weapon on the streets. So, as much as I'm not in favor of you know, gun control for responsible purposes like deer hunting, I absolutely respect that we should probably not have those on the public roadways, public streets, in the public schools, in the Capitol building, at the voting booths. What in the world? We ought to be able to do something about that. I do know people that are that carry openly, and well, I mean, for different reasons. I know a couple that lives in the country, have a dog, have wolves around that have been threatening, and I don't really see that as a real great deterrent for protecting their dog, but it's what they feel like they can do. And I guess I understand that. I think it's highly unlikely they're gonna get attacked by a wolf, but right now people have the right to carry, and for that purpose, I guess that's all right. I do have a problem with Glocks or you know, some other weapon just being able to be just anywhere. That doesn't seem okay to me. Responsible gun ownership is going to require people to lock up their guns, keep the ammunition away from the location where the gun is, make sure that children don't have access to them. I mean, I think a lot of gun issues are accidental, not necessarily you know, kids pulling the trigger on other kids on purpose. But sadly, too many people are dying from guns. That's not what we should be about. I'm surprised that we haven't had an assault weapons ban reissued at the federal level. Gosh, what was it in the 2000? Is it 2002, 2004? 21 years since now. The trouble is, how do you get the cat back in the bag now with all of these things that are sold, with all the things that are produced, with all of the knockoffs, with all the stuff? I think and that's a big question, way beyond the state government, I guess. It's a federal issue. You're allowed to have certain things, but we can't control where those things are allowed. And I'm okay with having it limited outside of, you know, I mean, not around schools, not around daycare centers, not around churches, if the church doesn't allow that, all over the place. And if you didn't hear that, Joan just said that gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children. That is a shame. We got it.
So do you support an assault weapons ban or don't you on the Minnesota level?
I think it's gonna depend on how it is defined. Some assault weapons, some people use for hunting purposes, which I personally am not a big fan of. But yeah, I'm in favor of assault weapons not being on the city streets, not being at all these other locations. Yeah, I think that we can figure that out.
And you mentioned that cat out of the bag thing, but it doesn't help to create more cats. At some point, you can neuter the cat.
Thank you. Amen.
While we're on the topic, I just wanted to ask, and I think pretty much everyone in this room is probably on the same page of concern about government overreach, especially in federal government, and increasing kind of authoritarianism that we're seeing and a rightward tilt. And so I'm going to ask in general, how can we counsel, like, removing the ability for people to potentially defend themselves from, you know, an increasing amount of right-wing violence or left-wing violence or general political violence is on the rise all over the place. And so I understand that we need to keep people safe, we need to keep guns out of people's hands who should not have them. But how do we allow ourselves the ability to defend ourselves from like a tyrannical overreach if we remove the tools to do that?
Yeah, I agree, John. Thanks for the question. That's the dichotomy, isn't it? Right? And it's not just a physical violence issue, it's like a heart issue. It's about what are we about? I've been talking with students of mine about the question of what are we about as a country? It's one thing to have access to guns, it's another thing to have access to guns for a particular purpose. It's another thing to just play with guns. It's a whole other, I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this issue for sure. We gotta keep people safe, we gotta allow for people to have guns, but, you know, the type and the use, I think probably should be better defined. I don't, I really don't think that anybody is out to get everybody's guns, but I do think it's okay to limit those guns. We can have buyback programs for sure. That would be a possible answer. Certainly, you know, make sure that things are registered if we go through the normal channel. There's ways to minimize the inappropriate use of weapons. There's plenty of countries around the planet that already are doing some of these things. Let's learn from other countries. I mean, this is not an impossible problem. I do hear the argument often that you know, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Well, sure, but if they didn't have a gun, they probably would have a tougher time. You know. So we've got some real challenges there. I hear you.
Hi, Chris. Well, I'm kind of looking at the political science background that you may bring to that office, and just thinking about strategizing about how to be an effective leader. And I think of all the kudos we heard about Melissa Portman, just being able to motivate people, but also work the system. And so I guess this is more an encouragement than an actual question, but learning to be an effective legislator, committee work and building coalitions and knowing how the legislator, how the Minnesota House actually works, and finding ways to do that is not so much about constituent relations as it is how you work the system to get legislation through that you're interested in. So I just put that question out there. Have you been studying how the legislature works here in Minnesota? And getting some ideas about how you may navigate that stuff.
Yes. And I should say, I mean, I have good people around that I can ask questions of, former legislators that I know and have their phone numbers to. This is not a, hey, Chris comes in and saves the world kind of thing, right? That's not possible or realistic. When I went to one of the township board meetings, it said, oh, great, it's Santa Claus. And I said, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. That's not how it works, right? So yeah, it does help that I have some background in political science or in government. And I appreciate the mention of Melissa Portman. You know, in politics, sometimes they say that there are workhorses, there are show horses, and there are race horses. And I think in a lot of ways she was all three. Some people Some people really badly want to be on the news or have a big TikTok following, you know, kind of show horsey. Some people just work their tails off, workhorse. And then there's the other one. I would consider myself to be more workhorse than any of them. I get some stuff done, but like any job when you're just starting out, it's gonna take a little while to get your legs underneath you, right? But I think I have an advantage in that I've been a local, you know, working on the city council is a very, very small version of the legislature. I can talk with people, I can build relationships with people even when I don't see eye to eye with them. I mean, it's, you know, part of my faith is to do the best you can to be at peace with people of all kinds. To do the very best you can, and that's what I'm committed to do. I would consider myself a workhorse. I'm up early, working late. I'm no farmer, Fisher Merit, but I'll do the best I can.
So you kind of touched on that, what I was going to, you beat me to it, but my question is, in both on the federal level and the state level, we seem to be in a political system right now where money talks. The rich are represented, the wealthy get what they want, and that's how politics seems to be working and the trend we're heading towards.